So, what we're doing, so I'm in Hungary, we are a small team, like 3 people full-time and then 5 other people helping us out. We're an early stage startup. Our name is Vizzu, and we're specialized in data visualization. More specifically, we're building a new type of data visualization tool that has a strong focus on animation, as you can see. And the speciality of the whole thing is that we built an engine that uses a single logic to generate all different types of charts. And it can interpolate between the charts that can be expressed on its interface. And that results in a very flexible, like these kind of capabilities that are showcased with this nice animation. We are obviously looking for use cases and audiences who are, at this point have the skills and the experience to put this technology to good use. Technologically speaking, the core engine is in C++. We use WebAssembly to enable it in the browser. At first it had a very obscure scripting language. It was only myself and the other guys who had to struggle with that. Then we built a JavaScript API and we released an open source JavaScript library. And just basically using the same technology as Plotly does, we released a Python API this July, so like a couple of months ago, when I was doing a presentation at EuroPython in Dublin. And so that thing is why I'm here for. It runs in Jupyter Notebook and similar computational notebooks. It runs already in Streamlit, in Databricks. You can use it in Panel, you can even build a dashboard with it in Mode. So there are already plenty of applications. And yeah, for today, I thought I would give you an introduction, like a practical, deeper introduction to the whole thing. And I even have sort of like a challenge that we could work on together. And if we do a good job, some of us or some of you might even be able to win a couple of thousands of bucks. I'm not the one providing that money, Kaggle does. But I have a, I prepared something for you. It's a fun thing. It might be really powerful, or it might be just something you take half of your morning with. So before I go deeper, I would love to know who you are, and like a couple of hands up type of questions. So how many of you are working as data scientists? All right, almost everybody. I guess all of you are using Jupyter Notebook, right? Anybody who doesn't? Okay, good. You, what do you use? Okay, so you don't waste time with the notebook then. Okay, as I said, I'm not a data scientist. I wouldn't say I understand the importance of this, but still, our stuff works in Python too. There's like some special stuff you have to do as preparations, but it works. Hi, come join us. Okay, how many of you were present yesterday when I did the this short lightning talk about Donald Trump's tweets? Okay, half of the room. Was it the reason you came? Oh, good, perfect. We have the chance to take a look at the code of that thing as well. All right, and so you're working as data scientists. How many of you have to present your findings to non-data scientists, so like business stakeholders, like let's say, okay, more than once per month? Okay, like 3-4 people. More than twice per month? Yeah, still the same 4 people. Okay, we made some surveys about it, and it varies a lot. So there are people who have to do that regularly. There are people who don't have to do it really, and then there are data scientists working on the scientific field who are really averse to presenting anything. Not to mention, it has to be black and white and not animated at all. That is like an insight we gathered along the way. Okay, I put all the materials into a GitHub folder. If you go to bit.ly /ipyvizzu-workshop, you'll have all the notebooks that we're going through and the data that we're going to fiddle with. So I thought, because of the workshop setting, it's much easier for you not to just, follow my, as I'm going through the code, but you can already start manipulating it, breaking it, I don't know, building something new, and so yeah, it's just easier like that. Do you have any questions, requests, comments as of this point? Okay, let's jump in then. So basically, because of this this generic nature that Vizzu employs, how the interface looks, it's just one method, the animate method, that you have to call over and over again. When you call it first, it's going to give you a static chart. When you call it again, it will animate to the chart that you described for the second time. It sounds easy, but as you can imagine, with something rather early stage, maintained by a small group, and we are trying to figure our way out, there are some limitations and things to keep in mind. I will get to that too. But basically, that's the basic logic of it. It has three parameters: data, config, and style. You add the data to it. You set up the chart. That's the config part. And then you have a plethora of different opportunities to use the style that you intend to do. And you can even fiddle with the animations, like how the engine morphs from one state to the other. Actually, very few people start experimenting with that. We really try to make everything very straightforward by default, but we are happy to take insight on that too. It looks like half of the room already started skipping through all the material that I put there, so they'll be gone in 10. No, hopefully not. Okay, so let's see a very simple example. We're going to use a Titanic data set for that. We use pandas, and from ipyvizzu that you can install with either pip or conda forge, we are going to use chart data, config, and style parameters. And we are just going to read the Titanic dataset as a CSV and edit, so create the data object and add the data frame to the data object. That's about it. I think it's fairly straightforward. And yeah, we can take a look at how whether it was, we have the data set. And I mean, I think you're all very familiar with it, so no time needs to be spent on that. Now we create the chart in the next cell. We can set the width and the height with either percentages or pixels. There are a couple of other options, but that's basically the most important too. And we build our first chart by adding the count, which is an extra series that we added here. It's like 1 in each row on the x-axis, and add sex to the y-axis, add something to the label, and then add the title to the chart. What do you think? What we're going to see when I run this cell? Any ideas? A bar chart, yeah, absolutely. It's a simple bar chart. On the x-axis, it's the count, so the number of people, and it's split by male and female. Yeah, in the next phase, yeah. That's a great question. The default is, so I will get into it in more detail, but the geometry of the rectangular geometry, we have circle, we have line, we have area, and also the Euclidean geometry. So we have Euclidean and polar. And so if you don't specify those, it's going to be a bar chart or a column chart, because those are the most common. That's what. In that regard, we have defaults for every setting, and you can change all of those either this way or through presets that I'm going to show you. So it's just like, we try to get build this experience, or give this experience of building a chart with just 4 lines of code. So there are some defaults that you don't set here, but you're obviously good to go. So I mean, if I just add, I don't know, geometry. Oh no, let's do that. Geometry, circle, it's going to be like 2 dots here. So the positions are the same, but it's a circular chart. Obviously, this use case is much better for a bar chart. And then, so in the next phase, thank you for the question, by the way. So in the next phase, what I'm going to do is add survived on the x-axis, and everything basically stays the same, but I also add survived on the color. Any guesses now what we will end up with? So we will have, in the previous stage, we had only count on the x-axis. Now we have survived, and we also have it on the color. Stack. Yeah, it's going to be a stacked bar chart, and Vizzu will animate the transition between the two. And as the third and final phase of this super simple example is we are just going to remove the survived series from the x-axis and add it on the y-axis. Any guesses what's going to happen? Multiple bar charts. It's actually this activity is called, I mean, it's interesting that there's no grammar for these transitions. There are a couple of like experiments and directions, and people coming from the data visualization space have some sort of a language for that. Data scientists have a different sort of language, and we are actually trying to figure it out with people like you and build sort of a grammar of animated graphics. And this is called grouping, this activity when basically we just group the elements on the y-axis, and that's that. Okay, so that was the first example. Let's talk a little bit about the config part of the chart, because that's like where the magic happens, and that's the most complex part of the whole thing. So you can have we have the axis x and y, and we have channels such as the color, label, size, lightness, and nope or nope. I think I'm pretty sure you both understand what x and y means. Size, color, label, lightness. Anybody having any questions regarding what they might do? Okay, and nope. So it means we are going to use that. It's a special channel that won't affect any characteristics of the markers. Just you'll have more than if you add any series to these channels. It means you have more markers, and it also affects the characteristics of the markers, their vertical or horizontal position, their how they look, and what's written on them, and so on and so forth. With nope, it's just you have as many markers, elements on the chart, as many categories basically you have on the categorical series that you add to the chart, and nope just enables you to do that without changing any other characteristic of the chart. I know it's very theoretical at this point. I will give you an example, and it will be very straightforward. Actually, it happens all the time that we have a very good understanding of the nitty-gritty details of the logics behind any kind of charts, whereas you have a lot of experience in actually, practically applying those, and we are working towards being on the same level with you. It's not the other way around, that you have to understand what we do, but I always end up trying to explain it because I'm so enthusiastic about it. Sorry about that. So we have the coordinate system, as I mentioned, the geometry I already talked about. We can sort the elements on the chart, so make it like from smallest to largest and things like that. We can align the elements towards any axis. You can add a title, just like we did here. So it was, title, Passengers of the Titanic, and it appeared on the chart. So it's easy as that. And we have this specific thing called split that I'm going to show you, and also a special type of alignment that's called stretch. So yeah, let's build another chart, and we'll see some examples. So it's going to be chart 2. You can have multiple charts in the same notebook, as you can see. And what we are going to do here is, I think we start with the same chart. No, this one, yeah, that we saw before. And we are just going to experiment with the align stretch thing, which is doing this. So it stretches the alignment, and via this, you can basically compare values versus percentages. As you can see, the scale adapts to this, so it's already percentages shown on the scale. It's not percentages shown on the labels, though, and it's something you have to do in the background, so like add the percentages to your data frame. And because Vizzu is automatically summing up the elements, so in the data frame there were like everybody had a count of 1, and still we saw that there are 233 women who are survived the crash. So it adds up all the elements in the count series. So if you want to add something like that, a percentage, you have to also split it among the elements that are being shown on the chart. It's a little tricky. I will give you examples to that too, but basically because of the stage that we're in, there are a couple of things that you have to do in the data frame. We are already working on the new version of the engine where this would be just a parameter, and you would also be capable of using different like simple calculations, not just sum, but mean and minimum and things like that. Right now, it's still a little bit of effort on that side. All right, and if I just add, let's see, yeah, I have an example for that in the next slide, but why not? So if I add split true, which I mentioned is also like a specific type of, and I have to just turn the alignment back to the previous version. I mean the normal one, so align. Let's do it like this. Then you can see that what the split does. So it basically enables you to compare the components of stacked charts side by side. With the Trump example, it was when we had the trend of all the tweets, and then we were able to see just the retweets, the replies, and the original tweets with like one animation. We'll have it in the examples that come up next. Questions at this point? Yes, please. Yeah, it's a great question. Thanks. So the question was whether we can specify the order via which the elements are ordered or sorted. So Vizzu right now is capable of taking on, and I think I mentioned here, but I forgot to talk about it. So any number of categorical and one numerical series. That's true for the axis and the channels as well. So in most cases, charts would only have one numerical added to them. That's actually very true for all the charts that you're using, except for like scatter plots and bubble plots, where actually sorting doesn't make too much sense. Because the position of the markers on the x and the y-axis is like a value. So you don't want to change that. It only makes sense if you have categories on one axis and a value on the other axis to rearrange and sort the elements. And that can only be like one value at this point, which actually I don't think any charting libraries do it differently, but prove me wrong. It might be just that I don't know about it. All righty. Any more questions? Let's move on to another example, and it gets more and more complex, and we'll see where it takes us. Okay, so it's going to be the results of a LinkedIn poll that we took in 5 different groups where data scientists visit often, and basically the beginning it's pretty much the same, so there's nothing interesting about that. We set the chart parameters again. We add the data to the chart, and we are going to use this thing here that is crucially important, or like it opens up a new set of nifty opportunities to show your data, which is to add a filter to your data. So we have 6 or so the 5 different groups, but because I add data.filter and add this thing here, it will only the chart will only show the data from group number 1. So it's easy as that. And we set up the yeah, I mean, you're already familiar with everything that's here. And we also use just a little bit of padding for the legend. So if I run this cell, I'll end up with a stacked bar chart where we have already the information there, but there's just one group that is being shown. And in the next phase, I'm just going to turn that filter off by using data filter none. I'm not sure, so maybe I can zoom in a little bit so that you can see it. And if I run this cell, all the other groups appear. So it's a great way to just explain what you're about to show without confusing the audience and them trying to understand and decipher all the different categories out there. It's just you can build a complex chart. It's not that complex, but still one by one. We actually like to do it like when we want to build like a bubble plot, which is considered a pretty complex chart for most people. We add dimensions and values one by one, so it's just easier to follow and get acquainted with the chart. And obviously the whole thing about animation is that it makes it easier for people to follow along a story. So storytelling is one of the aspects that we're focusing on right now. We actually have a vision of building a graphical user interface built on charts, but that's for the basic business users. So I'm not going to come back and show it to you because obviously your analytical skills and know-how is like way beyond that. But this is so I just want to make it clear that this whole IPython thing that we do is an important like stage on our journey, and the opportunity to work together with you in identifying the benefits and the use cases of our tech is what brought us here, and also the opportunity that you are skilled enough to be able to utilize this technology, whereas obviously end users don't stand a chance the moment they would have to start coding. Yes, please. Yeah, it is similar in some sense, but our tool is built totally from the ground up. So because of the generic nature, you could actually build syntaxes around it or on top of it. I keep on thinking we should have a matplotlib sort of dictionary or something to enable people to just use their matplotlib charts and animate them with Vizzu. Would that make sense to you? Oh, great. Just for the record, some people nodded their heads. Yes, please. No, it sums it up. And because of that, we had to like calculate it beforehand and add it to the data frame. So we have number of votes here, and well, we didn't do it in the data frame. I will show you examples when I do that, but somewhere else. But we also add the percentages to the this is like here's a group, group name. Here's a group like coded with a number. Here's an answer. Here is the votes in that group for that answer. So it's just a number. Here is like how many people voted on that answer in that group. And then we have like, okay, how many votes were casted on that group altogether. So as you can see, it repeats here. And then we calculate like from the total percentage for everybody in every group, how much actually is for this group. If we go through the story, I know it sounds a little complicated, but when we go through the story, it's going to be very clear. Yeah, in this case, it's just a simple example. Last example meaning this one, or yeah, okay, so this one. Yeah, the same thing is happening in the background. So basically, we have now, okay, so let's see. In group 5, 2 or more per month has 39%, okay? And you can see it right here. So this is that marker. There's nothing to sum up here because we are to the most granular level of the data frame. And when we go like more, like when we forward in the story, you will see that we will start adding certain elements. But that's a great question. I know it's you have to understand this logic that we employ. So thank you very much for that. Okay, in the next phase, I'm just turning on splitting. It actually makes more sense with these many elements. So everybody can compare how what the percentages was per different answer in all the groups. And then in the next phase, we just switch and add the vote count instead of the vote percentage. So that's actually something I think very powerful to change the value being shown on the chart. I did it yesterday with Trump's number of tweets versus number of times these were retweeted. Vizzu always very nicely animates when you change a continuous series. Even for example, if you have a scatter plot and you change the value on any of the axes, then the little dots or the circles will just move to their new position. It's very easy to follow one or more elements where they go, or understand changes in how they are scattered across the plot and things like that. And so the next stage is when we are adding up the elements. So yeah, like this, and it did it automatically. But as you can see, I called the animate method twice, not just once in this step. There is an important reason behind it. So as you can see, in the first animate, it was group and vote count on the y-axis, and then it was only vote count. The reason I do this is because when you remove a category from a chart, or when you add a category to a chart, it will split up the markers. And as of now, and I think for maybe the next month, Vizzu won't automatically just know from which, so how to remove that extra category or how to add it in a way that it's so super easy to follow for the viewer. And because of that, it will fade. I had many people who were super enthusiastic about using our technology, ending up publishing something where the chart was fading between two stages instead of animating. And my co-founder, who was actually coming up with the whole concept behind Vizzu, was just tearing his hair out one by one for seeing that. But it makes a lot of sense. I mean, why would people know that we have this kind of logic behind the whole thing? It's us who have to enable them, enable you not to think about it. But still, right now and for the next month, you have to think about it. And whenever you see your chart fading, instead of animating from one stage to the other, that is what's happening. That's basically no other reason for that. Okay? You change the categories. And when we're doing this, and you would have, hi, welcome. And when you will have some experience like that, just let me know. I'll be there to help you out, okay? It's fairly easy but it might not come naturally like what is going on here. But if it fades, just let me know. That will be the issue. Okay, and as now we are changing again to total percentage, and just going back to your previous question, so we are now adding up these elements. So 3.9%, it's somewhere here, in the 46% or 45% that's in the chart. Does it make sense? So right now, this is the only thing it can do. And we are working on adding more like simple calculations, as I said, to the engine so that you can, just pick mean or minimum or any other thing like that. It just requires like some investment. And as I said, we're a three-man team plus 5 part-timers. So, and also this text setup, it works really nicely and everything, but getting contributors who can work on C++ engine that will help some other people using a Python package. It's not that straightforward, to say the least. Having people like you to build examples and experiment with our stuff in different environments, that makes total sense. But adding features like this, it's a lot harder. Yeah, and then you can actually, we already have the thing where you can just, click on different markers and select them. Sadly, this selection won't stay there when you animate from one face to the other. We will add it, so we know it's like the most mind-blowing thing is that we had it in the prototype. But when we had to, do the production grade engine, our CTO said that it has to wait a little bit. He's like super keen on making robust stuff and in backward compatibility and everything. So it's great on the long term. But me standing on the product side, I'm being the CEO of the company, by the way. So basically, at the 3-person company, it's like doing everything business related and stuff. I'm just like, I need that function. I know people would love it. There are ways around it via coding, but obviously it will become much more natural if you just click on certain elements and then you see the same stuff in different views. All right, and let's switch to polar coordinates. And what we'll end up with is everybody's favorite, a pie chart. Would you have thought that a pie chart is basically a stacked single bar chart in polar coordinates? Not many people think about it that way. We constantly do. This was the initial interface that we released, and it has a couple of challenges, as you can see. And the challenges are not only the ones that I mentioned, but one is that the generic logic can be hard to comprehend. This like putting series, categories, and values to different axes and channels. You might not know what you end up with. Even though I think, fit in nicely with the notebook environment, and you can obviously experiment, but when you're working, this is not what you want to do. You don't want to experiment, you just want a scatter plot. So I want to build a scatter plot. You want a stacked bar chart, and you don't want to figure it out, like in what setting would that work for you. That's what every data scientist told us when we released the initial version of this March. And also the one-directional use. So if I call like this cell again, nothing is happening. And if I call this one again, then something very strange happens. So we didn't go back to the previous state, but the code was called on the state, on the final state of the chart, and it changed the settings somehow. And now we have a chart that we might not even be able to interpret. It's basically a column chart that is in the polar coordinates, by the way, but still, it's not handy. So we tried to address those issues in the recent months and started working on adding presets. We have now over 40 of these. So if you go on our site, it's like you have to go to ipyvizzu.com, and then you will have a tutorial that's on this side, by the way. And also there'll be examples right beneath the logo. It looks like the internet is working properly, but whatever. So these are the presets, and if you click on any of the examples here, you'll end up with some code, and you can see that, for example, this is config %bar here. So it's not config, just config anymore, but you can pick the chart type via like this and decide what you want to build. It has even a more simple syntax, so you still put something on the axis, but I think that's the part that's pretty straightforward. And you just add, you want to stack it by another category. And a %bar chart, you don't have to add align stretch like you would have in the original version. You didn't have to add joy factors to the color like you would have to in the original version. So it's a lot simpler. And there are a couple of these presets, as I said, around 40. We are happy to add more. So if you have a chart type that you don't see here but you use pretty often, I would be surprised, but I would love to hear about it. And we can add it in a couple of days. And these are all presets here. Also, we have static charts with the old interface that you can take a look at, and we have animated charts, so like simple transitions as examples to learn from that you can check out on our site. And we even have everybody's favorite from 3 years ago, the racing bar chart. But we added something on top of it that other libraries and solutions can't do. This is obviously the racing part. It shows how much revenue different music formats generated here in the US between the 1950s, I think, up to 2020. And yeah, this way of aggregating the whole data set and then showing it how it spreads across time. Oh, sorry, it's since 1973. So it's something that you cannot really do with another type of library, especially not with these many lines of code. Okay, I would go to a preset example, but again, happy to answer any questions you might have. Yeah, please. Thanks. But. Okay, so most of the things are basically out of box. So you can just run this amount of code that you saw. Mm-hmm. Yes. HTML. We were writing, so like drawing things on the canvas, and so we are getting to the point where you would have the same interactive story telling and presentation stuff that I showcased yesterday with the Trump thing, and you can just export an HTML out of that and send it to anyone. No, it's an animated interactive HTML file. You weren't there with the Trump presentation. That's all right. So it's interactive. You can go back and forth between these slides, because that was the other issue that we had that is mentioned here is the one-directional use. We already have a solution for that, and I'm getting there. I promise it's going to be more handy in 15 minutes. It's just basically I'm also showing you our story, so like how we got here. I think it's the best way to understand how this thing currently works. And thanks for the question. I hope, again, in like 10 minutes of time, you will have these kind of, you will feel that this is easy to use and utilize in your life. Okay, quick, please. No. With the storytelling interface, it's not one directional. It's bidirectional. It's a presentation. That's going to be the next example. Pinky promise. Okay, but just want to show you how the presets work, because then again, these are all used in the storytelling stuff as well, and I think it's just better to go step by step. So right now we have a data frame. Surprise, surprise! It's about how much revenue music formats generated in the U.S. So sadly, I already blew the whole story. Sorry about that. And we are just adding a bar chart here. So this is something you saw in the animated version. And then because it doesn't look so well, we switch to grouped bar chart, which we will group by format, which is on the y-axis as well. And one more example of how we use styling is that we add colors to it like this. So we use the style parameter. We say plot marker color palette, add a list of colors, and there you go. Instead of the colors that you saw before, so which is the default one, you have a new palette that is already working there. It actually makes a lot of sense to change color palettes within a longer story, for example, because when you're showing different categories, you don't want people to think that it's still the same category that you showed before, for example. So like a couple of things we do here, again, rearrange the chart, just added, so this is also an interim step. I added year on the x-axis. You don't see anything about it, but it's an interim step required to avoid fading when I go here. So I can actually show you an example of how it looks when the whole thing fades. So let's go back. I think I have to start over again to make sure that we end up with the view that we we're looking for. A group bar chart would have been enough, but whatever. And I skip this step, okay, this one, and go right to here. So as you could see, it faded. It didn't do the nice animation, the nice transition from one state to the other. Sorry, it was like, I guess, it wasn't seen on the screen. So yeah, it faded backwards again, like this. Whenever you see something like this, it's because of the categories. Okay, you have the opportunity to add event handlers. I'm not going to go into the details, but these are just too many years written on the x-axis. It's really not looking very nice. And this is just 3 lines of code or 5 altogether that would tell the system to only write the years when they are divisible by 5. And if I go there, it's like that. All the others are gone. So there are plenty of different opportunities to fine-tune your graphics to make them look nicer. We try to make them look nice out of box, but you know we can just prepare for all the different kind of settings. And we will switch now to the stream graph. It should be, yeah, sorry, the animation is keep happening outside of the screen. I do the splitting again. These are all things you're very familiar with. Then I do the filtering thing once again. You can use, so it's not Python syntax, I know, it's JavaScript syntax with the filter, meaning you have an extra equal sign and an extra or sign, and the hyphen, so like the hyphens are at a little different place. Sorry about that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you would be able to figure it out. So this is another way of using the filtering stuff to zoom in on certain elements. It's a very simple feature. I think it's super powerful in storytelling. It really works well. Now when we switch the filter off, that comes my wife's favorite part. She calls it when the elephants are kissing. Yeah. And here we go. We're just gonna change this to a line chart by using config line. And it means we are able to compare the trends side by side because lines are not stacked on top of each other. Okay, that's the way how we like try to address the generic logic thing, and then comes the one-directional use case thing. So this is what we released. This is a new extension called ipyvizzu-story. It's in a separate repo. So I have all the links for the repos in the here at the folder that I shared with you. If you can give us stars, we'd love to have that. So it's ipyvizzu and ipyvizzu-story, 2 different repositories. You have to add both when you're using ipyvizzu-story. That's about it. Again, we're using pandas, and we're going to build a story about the federal R&D budget, how much money the US government spent on different stuff that is considered R&D. As you can see, defense is one of them. It had, and healthcare is another. So those are, I think, very different things, but they all fall under the R&D budget. And this is just an example of a more complex style that we add to the chart. We just create a separate object where we add all the different settings for the different parameters. So it's like plot, y-axis, label. The font size should look like this. The right padding should look like this. The title color is basically vanished. So because the last 2 bits tell you the transparency. So set to 0, it's not going to be there. And a couple of things like that. I actually have prepared, and it's also, the link is in the, again, in the README of that folder that I shared with you, the spreadsheet for you, where you can just go through the hierarchical logic of our style settings. And for example, this is plot. This is open here. You can open and close it. I would suggest you to make a copy of it, by the way, then, because I think as a viewer, you might not be able to close and open these things. So I just open plot, and here's the x-axis, and here's the label, and I would say I would just want to change the font size. It's pretty straightforward. The code that you have to write might not be out of, like, at first. So if you say, like, I want the font size to be 1 VW instead, the sheet will just generate that 1 line of code for you to make your life easier. And you can use, pixels, EMs, viewport width and height, and so to make your visualization more responsive, or percentages, everything that's in HTML. So we just add it as a separate object, and we add it to the story. Because right now we have a story, and we add data and style to it. And yeah, so I think, yeah, just to go one by one. So we have ipyvizzu-story, and we have the story, the slide, and the step element. These are in hierarchical order. The story is the whole story. A slide is a view of the chart or the data where you stop. And a step, so for example, the fading between the different categories, there might be occasions when you want to add more steps between slides. So a slide can have more steps. That's basically a list of chart configurations that would take you to the final step of that slide, which is the one that you want to end up at. It's that easy. So there's a lot of code here, but I'm just going to compare to the things that we saw before. So let's see the first two slides. It says, oh yeah, I forgot to run this cell, sorry. And yeah, so the way this looks is we have a chart here. We can toggle it to full screen. It will scale up nicely. And you have these controls beneath. You can go to the next view, back to the first view. You can add slides one by one. You can actually use a clicker to go through your slides, or page up, page down buttons, or your arrow buttons. And it runs right from the notebook. The full screen button doesn't always work in different environments. Like Databricks and Colabs, because we open a canvas where we generate the charts onto, and they put the canvas into an iframe, and content in an iframe can't go full screen. So don't be surprised if you find that. But Jupyter Notebook, for example, it works nicely. In Streamlit, it works perfectly well, and in some other platforms as well. So yeah, and so a simple example, we create the story, we add the data and the style to it. Again, we set the size just like we did with the chart, and then we start adding slides. So the first slide is a slide. It has a single step. It has filter in it. So basically this part, it's the same as we saw before. It's absolutely the same ipyvizzu syntax that you, I assume, already very familiar with. It's just like this is one step, and then we add this slide with the single step to the story by calling the add slide method. That's about it. In the second step, I'll just add the split through method, again a single step slide, and add it to the slide, and play the story so that it appears right beneath the cell. The one line of code I haven't explained is this story set feature tooltip true, which will mean that we have this interactive tooltip. By hovering your mouse over your chart, it will just show the data right beneath it. It has some separate style settings and everything. It shows all the data, that's even the ones that are not maybe shown by the markers. Hi, welcome. And I'll just again use a handler because I really don't like that all the years are written in an overlapping fashion. And the third slide, it's going to be a multi-step slide. So I just create the slide like this, and I add one step where I just turn the splitting thing off. That's what this bit of code does. And then I will just switch off the filter. And via that, add the defense budget. Because originally the filter was set in a way that it includes everything but defense. So if I run this cell, and here's story play again, I will start with the same slide. So it always starts with the first slide. But I can go right away to the last one that I just added, so it's easier to look what you just built. And yeah, we have defense. You spend quite a lot on defense, or like the US over the years, as you can see. So a couple of more slides that we add here. I really don't want to take up all your time me talking, so I'm just going to add those all together and show you a couple of features. You have the notebook in the repo, so it's easy for you. And if you have any questions concerning the code, so that's where we started. We split it so we can see the trends. Obviously, space was huge in the 60s. Healthcare is growing basically constantly. Yeah, there's defense, which again, it's just the filtering, the zooming effect. You keep the context, but the story had took a different turn, right? You can again show the percentages, so you can see actually the share of defense is decreasing over time. It was a lot bigger, like in the Reagan era, when space war plans and whatnot. And again, we are just using the filtering stuff, but we now filtered not a category, but the years, and we filtered the first year and the last year. So, and by grouping the things, which is something we've done before, we can just compare different components and how they changed over time. That's about it. You have an interactive presentation, and you can just call. Yeah, it's not here for some reason, but let me show you. So yeah, you can. It's basically, yeah, it's like this story export to HTML, and just name it. And you have the interactive HTML with the data in it. You can send it in an email. You can upload it to your company server. Everybody will have the interactive story and not the notebook. So you can share it with people who would be scared away by one line of code. There's usually one thing that I change with the HTML that I generate from such a story, and it's that, as you remember, we set the size of the story in a way that it's 100% on the width and 400 pixel height. And usually I just change it in the HTML to be 100% in the height as well, so it takes up all the screen when they open it on mobile and everything. So it's just much better. And one other thing I wanted to raise your attention to is that when we read the data, we actually use the dtype function of pandas to tell it that year is actually a string, because year is a value, and if Vizzu thinks it's a value, your chart will look quite strange. So it will think that you have two values. That's going to be a chart, so it's going to be something, but figuring out what is going on, it might be a little harder. All right, that was the frontal part. I'd be very happy to see you just, I don't know, stand up and do a little bit of, like, I don't know, just to get your blood flowing. Maybe we should all do that, but I've been standing. But really, I mean, sitting here for 50+ minutes listening to me, I really don't envy you. So I would definitely encourage you to. In some cases, I ask the audience to just start massaging each other's. Oh, are you into that? I'm not sure. No, you're not. Okay. Anyhow, so yeah, I promised you the chance of winning some money, right? Yeah, questions, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. It's almost similar to this, and I think it's the Trump story, and I intentionally added an empty slide in the beginning. It's the same story that I showed you yesterday, so that it nicely fades in when I start the presentation. Yeah, as you can see, it actually doesn't adapt right away. There's like one interaction needs to be done, like moving your mouse over it, and as you can see, it scales, and actually it scales in an animated fashion. If you change the style settings, so like grow the font size and everything, we do that also in an animated way. So it's a single engine. That's what it does. So we try to use the capabilities. When you change the width and height of the panels, because there are like the legends part and the titles part and the plots part, that's happening in an animated fashion as well. Yeah, that's our strength, I guess. Any other questions? Yeah, a lot. Wow, great, thanks. Let's start here and go over there, right? We have time for all of these. Thank you. Yeah, you can say so. Yes, absolutely. You described the chart absolutely the same way as you did with the chart animate function. The only thing that you cannot do with the story bit is to add new data. With the original version, even though it wasn't in the examples, you can add new elements or even new series. So like extend the data frame that is being handled in the background. Just like with the zooming in out, so with the filtering, Vizzu would make space for the new elements to appear and everything, or ipyvizzu. So it works nicely with the stories, because actually in the background, all the different views along the story are generated so that you have this sleek, okay, I'm going back and forth between them. It's not like on the fly, like with the notebook cells. There's no way you can add data to it as of now. But apart from that, it's totally the same. Thanks for the question. Yeah, there was two. Oh yeah, I mean, you were the one first. So there's a lady sitting behind you, but you'll be next. One to 10. You can absolutely do it in a loop. Yeah, it could work, yes. I haven't tried it, so we still have time, and actually the remaining part of this session is about working independently or in small teams trying Vizzu. So please give it a go and let me know how it goes. As I said, I'm not a data scientist myself, so I might have issues, but together with everybody around here, I'm pretty sure we'll figure it out. And for example, with the racing bar chart, that's a loop. So that's a loop calling the animate method in a very quick fashion with the filtering, and it's just the time frame for the animation is narrowed down to, I think, 0.2 milliseconds, 0.2 seconds or something, so that it really quickly happens. That's one thing that you don't have in the storytelling bit as of now, the animation options. So it's as it is. We will add it, but we don't have it right now. Sorry, can you help me finding a plug? I just can't see any around here. Maybe it's just me. Okay, sorry. There was a question. You had a question. Oh yeah, that's perfect. It works for me. Thanks. Thank you. Sorry, I'm back. Context manager. I'm not sure what it does. Let's try it. Yeah, I think you can do that. I haven't tried it. You can actually add the slides at the very end. So you just create them, and you add it before you hit story play. That's like an easy way to go. I'm pretty sure you can actually make the code even more compact with a couple of tricks. I'm just, as I said, not a developer myself, so I'm using the vanilla version. Yeah, absolutely. And also, yeah, short answer, yes. That's a really interesting question. So right now, this whole thing is capable of you can build linear stories with it. You're right about that. So you can go on one track back and forth. And we don't think that moving forward is the way forward is to add crossroads in this linear path, but rather to add the opportunity for the end user to interact with the views. So for example, like switch on and off that specific function when it makes sense, so that you don't have to code those slides independently, and it's just an option for anyone viewing the charts, or to switch between values and percentages. That's also something fairly straightforward, and there are a couple of things like that. So we call it guided exploration. The way we see it is that right now you are the creators. So you are the people who can actually build such stories using our technology. And then there are the viewers, the business people who would look at it and try to understand what the results of your analysis, or something about their business, or things like that. And we want to enable this sort of guided exploration when people like you create them the initial views, but they can, on a in a limited way, but still explore the data and look for insights on their own using these animated charts that obviously make it, as we hope, quite easy to look through their data and keep context and understand what they're looking at, and use it as sort of like an interactive dashboard or report when the data is becoming like less static and more like a stream of data and things like that. So that was a great question. We don't think it's about multilinear storytelling, but rather exploration that we would want to have. Okay, there are a couple of people, but we'll get back to you, please. Yes, I'll send you, but I think it's fairly straightforward. It should be we have one that we built, and then there's a guy in the Streamlit creator community called Avra. He built a couple of other examples. It works nicely. There are a couple of issues we're facing with the sizing. Streamlit only takes pixel widths and heights, and yeah, it's actually about the presentation tools. It's a similar survey that I showed you the results of. The story is totally the same. How people prepare a content in Jupyter to present it. Most people screenshot it and add it to PPT. Do you do that? It's a viable option. I don't have any issues with that. It's just, I hope to that we will have like, oh, I'm using Vizzu. Why would I use anything else? So yeah, it's ipyvizzu-story at streamlit.com. No, sorry. Let me try and put it somewhere where you can just see it. Yeah. Here you go. Just type it in, and there it is. And I'll dig up Avra's stuff while we were talking. Yeah, I do. And there was a flame about it, right? Yeah, that was it. It was us. So on Reddit, honestly, we have over 40 million views and 200,000 upvotes with the stories that we built. And then there are the cases when we become too pushy. Like, it seems that for the data scientists subreddit, it was a bit too much. It's a simple story, and it seemed like we were mocking PowerPoint, and I don't know. Some people had a very strange reaction, and it was taken down. But if you go and look for Vizzu HQ on Reddit, you can see actually a couple of stories we built about farmer shares of chocolate bar and about different things. The election forecast in 2020, and the fate of the Chernobyl liquidators, things like that. Yeah, but that's a different thing. For the stories on Reddit, there are some bits where we added some video editing, but most of it, so like 95% of it is Vizzu. You should understand that this was way back, so in very previous versions of the thing. We even built, so for the Trump bit, I have an interactive, actually, something that does this guided exploration or shows a good example of that. It's the same thing that I showed yesterday, but it's a new, so this, you want to export Donald Trump's tweets? I can send you the link. This is, and the way, so the technology behind it, it's outdated. It's a very old version, but it's a good example of these guided explorations. So when you add buttons, this is something that people would definitely be able to follow along and understand what's going on. This is when we switch from, and it's a little slower, and there are a couple of issues with the animations here, but there's like more, like, there's a guy who tried to categorize which are the tweets that Trump himself sent and which are the ones that his staff. At some point in time, his staff started to add typos and all caps words to avoid such classification. So you don't want to see the code for this. It's such an outdated version. It was such a pain to put it together. We don't have time to get into it. It's a long story. Let's make 2 more questions, and let's hit with the actual challenge. Okay, I'm very happy to answer all your questions. Just I would love to show you what I prepared for you, and then that's it. Sorry, you had one over there. Yeah. Well, the you know how big your data is, it definitely affects performance. We have tried it with a couple of tens of thousands of data points. So, for example, the Trump bit, it's like 45,000 tweets or something, and it works nicely. We will actually use a big data set in the next example. And what I do actually, you will see, I'll just filter out all the columns that are not used in Vizzu to avoid it being generated for such a long time. Actually, it slows down the generation of the story. And since you're building something, you don't want to stop all the time waiting for it to generate all the slides. And it makes sense to try and play with a smaller data set. Yeah, please. Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah. 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 So the question, I mean, because of the recording, just I keep on forgetting. So the question was about texts and how to add text other than the title. That's a request coming up very often. We are thinking about, as you can imagine, about a simple solution and then a more complex solution. So, for example, I think Matplotlib does a great job with this. They have so many different, quite straightforward options, as I can see, about adding text to plots. We want to do the same, but again, the animation poses some new challenges for doing so. But it makes perfect sense. Maybe at first it's going to be just 3 lines of text beneath the chart that you can switch on or off, or things like that. Would that be enough for you and like to try, or you need more? A real present. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I got you. Mm-hmm. Back to the chart. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. We are actually thinking about, because there's Jupyter Slideshow, which uses revealed.js that's behind slides.com, and integrating with them seems quite straightforward. We are actually in the process of raising another round of funding. When we can do that, we would have more resources to focus on these use cases. It makes perfect sense, and thanks for asking about it. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, so integrating with slides.com would mean something like that, in my view. But we have to talk about it in more detail. Markdown slide. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay, I'll scribble it down. Oh yeah, it's a great idea. I have to talk about it with our team. But thanks for the suggestion. For the Streamlit thing, yeah, it's not that nice, this URL. But if you look for Avrabit and ipyvizzu, I'm pretty sure it will come up. That's the other Streamlit example that I mentioned to you. Okay, can we get started with the example? Okay, why did I promise that you might be able to win some money? And again, not from us, but from Kaggle. So Kaggle has this survey it does, like for the 6th year already. They ask data scientists, maybe you've filled this survey, maybe you just saw it, maybe you skipped it, I don't know. But there are like more than 20,000 people filling it out every year. And this year they have a challenge that is about, let me see if it's open here somewhere. No, but it's definitely here. So the challenge is about building a story about one of the subsegments or the sub-communities of the data science community. They have the data set dating back to 2017. I think actually the 2017 data set is a little bit different, but since 2018 it seems pretty much the same. And they have a competition that lasts until the end of this month. And we would love to have, obviously, somebody winning it using ipyvizzu-story. We think it's a great fit. We would be happy to help. From our perspective, it's even better if somebody wins it using our tool than if we win it ourselves, honestly. We don't build a tool for so long to win, I don't know, $5,000 or $10,000 with it, but we would love to have you do that. Absolutely. So, yeah, it's everything. So if you just go to the this folder in the Vizzu workshops repo, there's like this is the URL. So bit.ly/ipyvizzu workshop. You have all the links necessary to do that. And basically, I prepared an initial story for you to show you how I think this data could be used. Feel free to tore it apart. Feel free to build something completely from the ground up. It's all about, this is an opportunity to fiddle with ipyvizzu. Also, you would have a purpose in this regard. And I would just love to see what you come up with. Sadly, we don't have too much time. I took too much time talking, but so let's try and do something with it in the next 15 minutes or so. And those of you who are open for such a challenge now. And then I would love to, just keep in touch with you if you decide to build something. I don't care if you don't submit it to the competition, okay? So I really don't want to push you if you're not that kind of person. It's just an opportunity that I thought makes sense doing here. So, and the way I prepared this story, you can look at the notebook. Actually, most of it is just preparing the stuff in pandas. Not very exciting. I actually picked the people who are younger than 30 years old. It's really culturally not right to ask people about their age. Okay, I won't. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm from Hungary. I keep trying to fit in, and I feel like I'm, it's like as we call it, dancing on eggs sometimes. Anyhow, I categorize people who are below 30 and who are above 30, and try to see if that affects the results within the data set. I actually also prepared for you something that you don't have in the original data set, which is the prices. Yes, the spreadsheet of the survey questions, and let's deal with that later. So there are a couple that are not very interesting for me, at least. The duration. Everything else is categories. So obviously you have to add the count so that you have one value. And many of the questions are just one selection. Okay, so like there's a series and it tells you like what age group that person falls into. And there's like 20 of these. It's pretty significant, like how much money you earn, or for how long have you been coding, how long have you been using ML tools, what's your title at work, how big is the company you're working for, are you a student or not, what's your highest educational level, things like that. And there are other types of questions where, on which platform have you begun or completed data science courses, and they basically added it to separate series. So there's some preparation needed to be done in order to visualize it and in the right way. The example only contains like something that was in the single column questions, I'd say. And again, so I just categorized the people who are below 30 and above 30. I sorted the data. It's really important that when you have like temporal data or you want to sort data better than just with our by value option that I haven't showcased. Sorry about that, but it's fairly easy. You should sort the data frame. So I'm just doing it like I'm sorting the data frame based on the salary and also on the title. And you'll see in the story why it makes sense. I'll just check if everything's all right. I basically threw out everything else so that we have a smaller data frame. And then the Vizzu code starts. I'm not going to go in more detail. And here is the story that I prepared throughout the night. So yeah, there are around 24,000 answers here. And this is the below 30, above 30 percentage. These are the gender ratios among these people. Let's see the shares. So younger people, that's below 30 is the bar on the top. There's a little bit more ladies and non-male participants in that community. So I definitely would want to check if there is a trend here with the data set from the previous years. Then I just switch the category to student or not student. As you can see, like 3/4 of the people below 30 are students. I filtered them out. And then next up, I will just focus and filter out those who didn't provide salary info. So that's why the value changed. And then I will just add the amount of money people make or say they make. And as you can see in the lower ranges, the trends look pretty much the same. And above 50,000 per year, basically people around below 30, they are just falling out. So it's apparent that there's a lot less people percentage-wise. These are values here. I would definitely calculate percentages instead for something that I would submit. But apparently from the values you can right away see that there's a trend here. And then the last view I made is about the titles. So I now added back the people who didn't provide salary info, and then removed the people who didn't provide a title. So, and then I just show them by title. There's a lot, so here's the text a little too tiny. I think it's interesting that there are some professions where, so the shares are very different, like between below and above 30. It makes a lot of sense with teachers and professors. So it's, no wonder there are very few people below their 30s who do that, or managers. But for example, ML and MLOps engineers, people below 30 are almost at 30%, 50%, sorry. Whereas data architect, just like literally non-existent among people who are below 30. I don't know why, obviously. It's an interesting insight I found by playing with it, with this data set. And if you just change the initial pandas part and figure out different categories, I mean, like trying to find the gender pay gap, if there is any, or focusing on people who use more than 5 tools, or focusing on people who work at companies that are larger than 500, like so really big enterprises, how that affects their salary, their gender ratio, their I don't know how many years they've been coding. So there are plenty of opportunities here, and I think with our tool you would be able to build a story fairly easily. Now, as I said, this is the first time I've been doing this. It's obvious that I talk way too much, so we already almost towards the very end. Sorry about that. It's not the first time I fall into this trap. But you had great questions on the other hand. And yeah, I mean, I would love to, how many of you think that they would try and build something out of this Kaggle, or like for Kaggle, for this competition? I would just like to understand. It's not something, I would keep you close for. Okay, 4 or 5 people, great. 6, thank you. How many of you think to play with Vizzu or ipyvizzu? Just give it a go at home. Everybody, go. I'm so glad to hear that. So just one last bit of, I don't know, not advice or something, but yeah, just how to reach us. So if you go to ipyvizzu.com, I at least hope very much that there is, yeah, there's a link to our Slack. It's not high enough, but yeah, here it is. So towards the bottom, the community link. Come join our community. I'm personally welcoming everybody who comes in, because I'm so grateful that people would want to do something with our baby, you know, with the thing that we were working on. And I would love to help you out. I know that learning a new tool can be very painful. I have already learned, you know, using the same tool in a very obscure scripting language in JavaScript and in Python, and it was painful every time. But, you know, at the end of the day, I could stand just like here and yesterday and show some nice stuff about Donald Trump's tweets, which I would have never guessed I would do a couple of years back. So yeah, I'm just happy to, and not just me, everybody else in the team, we'd be happy to help you through this initial period of you know, getting acquainted with Vizzu and help you shine in internal company meetings or at a challenge like this. And actually the meeting is a great way. We have Bloomberg and Skanska and other companies like this where it has already been used. The feedback we get is that members of the audience feel smart. So it's not just an opportunity for you to shine and show something really sexy and cool, but also for members of the audience to feel empowered and like, okay, I know what's the drill, I understand what's going on. So if you like to have that, then give it a try. We have still around 5-6 minutes, and just I'd be happy to answer any questions you still might have. Thank you. Yep. The engine, yeah. Yes, I think so. As I said, I'm not a tech guy. I'd be happy to connect you with our CTO, but all I know is that we're using WebAssembly, so the C++ engine runs in the browser. And everybody knows a bit about this. They're like, wow, it's cool. And I'm happy about it. And it do run, and it does run. So I'm double happy about it. Please. Yep. Yeah, yes, there is. The way I would do it is add a category like to the data frame that has a different value at the elements that you want to select and at the elements that you want to not select, let's say. And then what I would do is add that category to the node channel that I haven't showed you, which would just keep everything the same, and just change the color. No, actually add it to the color channel in a way that everything that's not selected becomes gray, and everything that's selected keeps its original color. So it's a little hacky with the color palette, but I used it and it works perfectly. So for example, we have this story with Rafael Nadal's run on Roland Garros on Reddit. It was quite popular, so it should be coming somewhere here. Oh, it's Trump. I don't know how to. Yeah, here it is. So, for example, here I already built this with the new interface, and you'll see that there are certain matches that I highlight here, and I used that for that. That looks like it's not. Just the quality is awful. Sorry, I'm badly. No, we just record our screens. So we will have the option to export video of our thing, but right now it's basically there are either you know browser add-ons or you can just record your screen. So that's about laughing at people screenshotting their thoughts and adding it to PPT, right? I got caught. So that's the highlighting I do with the same stuff. Yeah. Any more questions? Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, yes. I'm like throughout the other workshops, I might go and find something nice for my daughter and my wife. But in the breaks, come talk to me. I'd be happy to continue this discussion. Absolutely. And you can see how awesome basically Nadal is. He won the same Grand Slam the most times, and actually he's the male athlete who won the same competition for the most times. Like he has the first four positions, which is like okay, pretty cool. And also back in that because this was released right after Roland Garros, he was the one with the most Grand Slams in total. Sorry, I'm a bit of a tennis stat nerd, or growing to be one, and I was a little bit excited about that. Alrighty, we're almost up. Any last questions? Did you like it? Thanks.